Okay, then I think I will start now. And before we start the session, the webinar here, that will be recorded, and you can also type questions into the chat, and we will then answer all the questions. And in the recording, the chat and also the chat history will not be displayed because of privacy regulations. So my name is Benedict. I'm an SAP consultant here at the ASAPIO company, which you also see here already on the screen. So we are from the ASAPIO company, and the ASAPIO company that delivers here the ASAPIO Integration Add-on. But I just want to wrap up what the ASAPIO Integration Add-on is for everyone who hasn't worked much with that yet, before we come to the actual topic, which is the Event Studio. So we see here the ASAPIO Integration Add-on in the red box, which is being installed here onto the SAP system, and that can be many SAP systems, like an older ECC system or an S/4HANA system, and that actually then enables your SAP system to send here data event-based into the cloud, and that can be one of the cloud brokers that you see up here, like AWS, Solus, doesn't matter. There's also generic REST endpoint connector, so you can also connect your SAP system to any generic REST endpoint. And there are also a couple of official SAP versions of the ASAPIO Integration Add-on, which can then connect here to the BTP, to the event mesh, to the advanced event mesh, and also to Fieldglass. And when we're sending that data event-based here from the SAP system, we can also include then data into the event. So when we're sending here, for example, material data to the cloud, then we also include here data from the material. So it is not just a notification event, which would also be possible, but we actually also send here data to the cloud, and we can also have an initial upload where we upload all the data, all the content from the database tables in SAP here into the cloud. And that is usually done here inside the backend with the ASAPIO Integration Add-on. And what we will see today is the Event Studio. And the Event Studio, that's a Fiori app, which I will open here. So you can also already see here the Event Studio here on my screen. And the Event Studio is a Fiori app which can be deployed in the ABAP backend, or you can also deploy it to your BTP. And you can also see that we can connect to the Event Studio here multiple backend systems. So we have, for example, here also an ECC system or multiple S4 systems. And I will choose now one of these S4 systems, and then we can go inside the S4 system here. And here I see, first of all, a data catalog, and the data catalog that contains here a lot of predefined content. So every tile that you see here, that is a data set of a specific object in SAP. For example, here we have the purchase order object, or here we have the business partner object. And I can click now on one of these standard tiles, and there are 70 of these predefined content objects here coming with the Event Studio. And here inside the Event Studio, you see then, first of all, the events which are linked to that data product here. For example, here we have the business object BUS 2012. So if you're familiar with business objects in SAP and with workflow events in SAP, then these business objects are very familiar also to you. And we have now a payload inside this data product here, inside this catalog. And that contains now all the data that we will send with the event from this data catalog or product. And here, for example, there's a CDS view behind that. And here we have then all the fields which will be part of the JSON that we're sending to the cloud here. And that is now a lot of data that we're sending here. But we can configure that completely, so you can choose yourself also which fields you want to include into the payload. And that is something that we will do now together in this webinar. So you see here we have the toggle button to display all these standard data objects which are coming with the ASAPIO Integration Add-on and which are being displayed here also inside the Event Studio. And we can also create now our custom objects. And that is something that you could do in the backend, or which we did always inside the backend, but you can also do that here completely inside the Event Studio without going back into the backend. And then you can do everything with configuration. So here, for example, I will create now a CDS payload catalog entry. And here I will give that a name, so we can call that here webinar, and I will do that here for product, do that uppercase, webinar product, and then we give that a name, and I will call it webinar product, and then we can pick a data source, and the data source, that will be in my case CDS, and I can search it here from here, or I can also type it here directly into this field, because I already know which one I want to take. So this, the CDS iProduct. Then I click on create, and then it will create inside the backend the catalog entry for this data here, for this data source. And when it did create that, then I can choose if I want to go to the CDS app, and there I can then configure the payload and tell the add-on which of the fields from this CDS I want to include into the interface later on. Or I can also go to and add the event linkage, or link that data product here directly to an event. And I will come back to the CDS app later. I will link it now to an event. And then you see here, we now can create here an event, and it also switched here to the event linkage. And here I can choose the event type. So you could choose here your business object, for example. Then you could type in here BUS 1001 for the materials in SAP. So that would be the workflow event, which is happening inside the SAP system. But since we're here on an S4 system, you can then also use here a REST-based event. So that's the RESTful ABAP Programming events inside the S4 system. ABAP class also exists, of course, but I will choose here a REST-based event. And with the ASAPIO Integration Add-on, and then in the end also with the Event Studio, we will make all the REP events possible which SAP provides. And you can find them here on our homepage. So here you see a tab for the Event Studio, and then you can see the REP events as triggers. And here's a list of all the currently supported events, but in future, all the events from SAP, all the REP-based events will be supported also with the Event Studio then. And there's one for the product also, of course, which we find here. I will copy this event, and then I can link it here to the product changed event. And I can also link it, of course, to multiple events. So I can say that I want to use the REP-based event for the change, and then also have a creation event from a REP-based event, or also from a workflow event from a business object, for example. So you can have multiple events linked to this same catalog here. Okay, then I will click here OK. Then will create the linkage here. We'll also display the linkage here inside the predefined events. So inside my events, we have here some predefined events, which you see here. They are always in our namespace, inside the ASAPIO namespace. But if I scroll down here, then you see we have now all the linkages here, also the one which I just created. They are all being displayed here. So once I go back here to the catalog, then I can search again for my webinar tile, for my catalog for the webinar. And if we click on this, then we see now the event here. That's now the event linkage which I just created, and I can then deploy that. And before I do that, I want to go to my payload. And that is something, that's the step which I skipped before. I can go back here into the payload, and that leads me then into the CDS. And inside the CDS, I see here the iProduct, the CDS I just chose, that's a CDS view entity. And I can then go here to the elements. And with that, I can add more data from that CDS view entity to the catalog. And everything that I select here, that will become part of the JSON later. So I can add here an element like this. And then we see here all the fields from that CDS. And I can, of course, choose all of them, or I just pick some fields here randomly. I'm just picking something. And with that, I click OK, and then it will include that into my payload, into the JSON that we're finally sending then to the cloud. So now everything is here included. I can also go to the element properties, and let me remove here some of these semantics. I don't want that now. Okay, and then we can publish this one, and then on the upper side you will see that it's still in the draft, in a draft mode, and then it will start to publish that. And then we can also see the status here. So now it's publishing, and publishing successful. Okay, so now it's actually ready. I have now my catalog. I chose the fields from my CDS view entity here. And now I just need to deploy it. So when I deploy it, that will create the interface which will then start sending the message to a cloud broker. And I click now on the deploy button, and now you can see I can choose here connection, and I could connect it now to any of the cloud platforms here, like for example Azure, Confluent. I can also connect it to multiple cloud platforms. So I can say I want to send the same JSON, the same information to Kafka, and maybe also to AWS. Or in my case, I will use the Advanced Event Mesh. So that's here the SAP AEM Advanced Event Mesh connection, which I will choose. And then it will show me some header fields, and that is dependent on the cloud broker which I chose. So in my case, I'm using the Advanced Event Mesh. So that's why it is requiring here some header attributes for Solace. So Solace is behind the Advanced Event Mesh. And I can fill in then these inside here. So if I choose Kafka, for example, then it will show me different, or let's take Azure Event Hub, and you see it's taking different header fields here. But I will take the Advanced Event Mesh now, and I will choose as load type an incremental load. So you see we have an incremental load and also full load or packed load, which can be used. So the full load is actually the packed load, and that can be used then for an initial upload. But I want to create an interface now which is reacting on events. So I want to send this information now every time someone changes a material inside the SAP system. That's why I'm picking here the incremental load. And then I fill in here the header attributes. So you also see which ones are the mandatory fields. And here we have the content type, which is an application JSON, delivery mode is mandatory, and then we have here a topic name. So that's the endpoint where we're sending the JSON to. Okay, so now I have everything filled in. I will deploy it now. And you also see immediately now that it's now deployed here to this instance. And what it did now, it did create inside the backend now this interface. And that is something which we can also see inside the backend. So you see here the name of the interface, and I will go now to the backend. So let me refresh this transaction. So going into the settings of the ASAPIO Integration Add-on, and then we go to our instance, which is the SAP Advanced Event Mesh, where I deployed now this interface. And then we go here on the left side to the outbound objects. And then you can see here the webinar object, so the webinar interface. And it now automatically also included here all the configurations. I will just activate here the trace that we can also see the JSON, the message, then later on inside the monitoring application. And everything that we see here, so that was created by the steps I did inside the Event Studio. So you don't have to go back to the backend and create here these interfaces. That can be done inside the Fiori app, inside the Event Studio. And I will do now a change on a material, which you could also do in the Fiori app from SAP, or here I will do it inside the standard transaction MM02. And then we change something small here. And as soon as I hit save, then the wrap event will be created and my interface is linked to that wrap event, and then it will send in real time here the message now to the advanced event mesh. And we can go for that here inside the monitoring transaction, and we can choose here our instance. And let me also take the name from our instance, so from our interface, and then we execute, and then we see here the entry inside the monitor. You see here my timestamp inside monitor, so that's exactly the time when I did the change here on the material. And you see here now the topic where we did send the information to, and you see here the JSON which was sent. So that's what I did when I selected all the elements in my CDS view entity. So here I do have now all the fields which I wanted to become a part of the JSON. And that is how you can configure easily here an interface without writing code into your SAP system to send this information here in real time to the cloud. And you see we used here the wrap-based event from SAP, and we did include here data to the events. So usually in an S4 system, you have these standard S4 system events from SAP, the wrap-based events, but they only include, in most of the cases, notifications. But here we include also data to the event. So you don't have to read back into the SAP system. It will all directly be available here in real time in the cloud. And so yeah, if you have questions, you can write them into the chat, and then myself or my colleagues can then answer these questions. And the Event Studio, that also contains here a monitoring application, which you can see here. I can then choose here the date, like previously in the screen, which you saw. Then it will show me now all the things happening inside the SAP system, so all the messages which we're sending here to the advanced event mesh. And for example, you then also see here the JSON, like we saw it previously inside the backend. That is also visible here inside the monitor. So the Event Studio, that is something which is available for every connector that we deliver, it doesn't come with an extra cost, so you can get it directly from us, the Event Studio. And in case if you're using an SAP version, so like if you're connecting to the Advanced Event Mesh or to the Event Mesh, then it will not be directly available for you if you download or install the component from SAP for the ASAPIO Integration Add-on into your backend. That is something which will become available in the next year, so early 2026. So we are also talking with Carsten Strothmann around that topic to make that Event Studio available then for everyone. But if you have the official SAP versions and you want to start using the Event Studio, then you can write to us, and then we can also make it directly available for you before 2026. And the Event Studio and all the web-based events, and also the business objects event like the BUS 2032, etc. That is all clean core compatible. So if you want to stay clean core and add data to your events, then you can use here the ASAPIO Integration Add-on. Okay, so that is everything that I wanted to show you here in this webinar around the Event Studio. If you want to stay up to date and don't want to miss any upcoming events, then we have a newsletter where you can sign up, and I will put that here into the chat. So that is the link. If you want to stay up to date, then you can use here the link to sign up to our newsletter. And if you want to take a look on the upcoming webinar, there's one coming up next week, which is our colleague Mario will show that. He will talk around the SAP Field Glass connector. And that is something where you can also sign up for next week. I will also put the link into the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. We can then answer everything. So for now, thank you from my side. Thank you for joining. Thank you for looking into the Event Studio, and definitely something we will keep up in the future and keep you posted with our newsletter. Good. Then thank you very much. See you.